is your relationship with time? Are you wired and tired, stressed and overwhelmed, busy and going nowhere? Or just want to scale your business? Welcome to Take Back Time with your host, Penny Zenker. Penny focuses on books, strategies, tools, and tips to help you work smarter and approach your time more strategically. As a result, you can have more energy, focus, and get more done in less time. Be more efficient and effective. Get ready to take back time.
Benjamin, welcome to the show.
Happy to be back with you. I love talking to you.
Well, we're going to continue the conversation that we had before in a little bit more depth, or in some other areas. And really, this is to highlight your amazing book, Personality Isn't Permanent, and all the rich content that's in there, from understanding the labels of personality and how that can limit us, all the way through to understanding how goals are constructed. And that's what I want to talk about today. We talked a little bit about our future self, and now let's talk about goals and how they shape our process and shape our results.
Absolutely. So you want me to explain that? Or?
Yeah, explain. In your book, it was very interesting. You broke down what it is to have a goal. And there are 3 areas, you said, that make up our ability to set a goal and to reach a goal. So let's talk about what those are.
Totally. Yeah. So it's important to realize, and I think a lot of people don't understand this, that every human behavior is goal driven. I mean, even anyone listening to this podcast, you're doing it for a reason. You may not be clear on that reason. Maybe it's just because you want to be entertained, or because you're distracting yourself, or because you want to be inspired. But anything and everything you do has a purpose. And so from a psychological perspective, every human behavior is goal or outcome seeking. And so when you realize that, then you can start to look at, well, why am I pursuing my current goals? And it's helpful actually to begin to define them. And because sometimes we don't even do that, but it's like, what am I actually seeking? Like, what is it that I'm actually going for?
I think that's going to be helpful for people, because by understanding what they're actually going for, they can see if that's what they really want, right? When you break
100%. I think it's, yeah.
You gave a great example in the book of somebody, Andre Norman.
Yes.
So maybe you could just highlight that story a little bit.
I'll tell that story, and then I'll go into how goals are shaped, because that story actually fundamentally explains it. So I'll just walk you through Andre Norman, and I'll try to do it pretty quickly. But Andre is one of my friends. He's brilliant. But anyways, he grew up in the hood. He grew up in Boston, and ultimately ended up going to prison. And so what ended up happening, I'm trying to figure out what aspects of the story to highlight, but basically he ended up going to prison because he ended up surrounding himself with some pretty rough crowds.
Okay.
And ultimately in prison, he became very entrenched in that perspective. And he was very much seeking to become like the top dog in the prison. And that was his goal. And your goals really do shape your identity. Your goals shape how you see yourself. And so he wanted to be that number one prison thug. Like, he wanted to be the top guy. And because that's who he wanted to be, that's what led him to doing what he wanted to do. Like, he would try to kill people in prison. And like, he ended up becoming incarcerated, solitary confinement. And at some point or another, it really dawned on him. It hit him square in the face that the path he was on, in his own words, he said it was kind of like his Wizard of Oz moment. He realized that he had been on a path, and that at the end of the path, at the end of the yellow brick road, there is no wizard. Like, it's a total hoax. Basically, he realized that the path he was on was nowhere. He said, I'm going to be the king of nowhere. Like, it hit him in the face.
Right.
It dawned on him that his current pursuits were pretty shallow. Like, it's really very much like the quote that, like, sometimes you realize you've been climbing up, the ladder of success, or whatever they call it, and you realize the ladder's been leaning against the wrong wall.
Wrong wall, yeah.
Yeah, and so he realized that was what he'd been pursuing for so long, and that was shaping everything about him. And so once he began to question that goal, he then said, well, if I'm not going to do this, then what should I do? And he ultimately came to the conclusion that he wanted to get out of prison, but he didn't want to just get out of prison. He wanted to stay out of prison. And so he set the goal to go to Harvard, because Harvard was the only school this man had ever heard of, because he was kind of ignorant. He grew up literally in the hood of Boston. But he figured
the only school.
That's a pretty good school to be the only one you've heard of.
Right.
But once he set the goal to go to Harvard, then that goal became his new identity, his new purpose. And that drove him. And your purpose really does drive what you're doing. And we all have a purpose, even if it's undefined. But that became his purpose, was I want to do that. And it actually took him 8 years, I think, to get out of prison from that point. But because he wanted to become successful, and he wanted to go to college, and he wanted to go to Harvard, and that became like his new thing. It led him to getting therapy. Like, he ended up like meeting with a rabbi. He learned how to read. He learned how to study law. Like, because he had that goal, it changed him. It changed the people he hung around in prison. And then when he got out, so it's just this idea that it's important to consider how you're currently defining yourself and about what you're currently pursuing. Like a lot of people, I think their main goal, if they're honest with themselves, is just to like literally get through the day or to make rent, or like you have to ask yourself, like,
right,
what is it you're actually going for, and why did you settle on that? Because that thing that you're going for is defining your identity, and it's defining your daily behaviors.
Right. And who will you become as a result of focusing on that as your focus? Yeah. There was a quote, and I just wanted to read it for people. They'll read it when they read the book, but that Andre said, bad people don't go to prison, quitters do. So when we're talking about our goals, right, how powerful is that? Prison being sort of the metaphor, right?
It's everything. Like Andre was actually in my living room and he told my kids that. And the reason that's so big is because when you quit on something you want, what that leads to is it leads to a fundamental drop in confidence. There's a really important quote with all of this, and it says, we're kept from our goals not by obstacles, but by a clear path to a lesser goal. And so usually what happens is let's just say you're pursuing something, you hit some obstacle. And if you quit, and then if you pursue something easier and lesser, because psychologically it's important for us to have a clear path to something. Motivationally, we need a simple, smooth path. Like we don't like complexity. And so if we hit some wall, it ultimately becomes a trauma. It becomes something where we create a fixed mindset and we say, I'm no longer going to pursue this. I'm going to pursue something that's different.
Right,
so quitting,
we can't do it, right? We then label ourselves and limit ourselves by...
It creates a fixed mindset. They say that trauma destroys imagination. And so if you have a negative experience and you can't reframe it, or if you don't take the time to reframe it or get support or coaching through it, then you'll hit some event and you'll quit. And if you quit on what you really want or what you were pursuing and then pursue something else, like that by nature is living a pseudo life. And unfortunately for most people, that's how their life and personality is. Like they had some negative event that occurred in the past. Right. It shaped their identity. And now their life and their personality is to avoid the pain of dealing with it. And so why it's so key to define your future self and to define the goals you want and to shape those goals intentionally is because those goals are ultimately who you become.
I mean, and that's so important. So I want everybody who's listening.
Yeah.
Do you write your goals down?
Yeah.
Do you even know what your goals are? Are you setting an intention, a long-term goal, midterm goal, right? So that you're breaking it down. And if you're not, this is the perfect opportunity, especially since you've got a little bit more time at home, to do that and really make sure that you're really intentional about the goals that you're setting and why you're setting them and what will be different in your life when you reach them.
Yeah, and I'll explain the three ways goals come from, but I just want to say one more time how important this is, that you pursue what you genuinely want. It's so important because I believe that most people have settled for lesser goals. But if you're genuine and you can take some time to journal or whatever, think about if you could have it and you're not worried about what people think or you're not worried about failures, what would you genuinely want? What would you genuinely seek? If you make that your identity by beginning to tell everyone that this is now who you're going to be and this is what you're going for. Yes, it will take a lot of courage. Yes, it may shock people because it's maybe been quite different from your former self and how you've been. It's just, that is really the only way to live in alignment is to, and so here's now where goals come from, because what you want now is not what your future self is going to want. Basically, goals come from three sources. One is what you've been exposed to. You can't pursue something intentionally without knowing about it. And so context really matters here. It's a recognition that your current self does have a limiting perspective and that what you're currently pursuing is based on what you currently know. And I'll give it just a short story that I give in the book on that, and that's Charlie Trotter. Charlie Trotter was the famous chef, and he lived in Chicago. I think Oprah loved his restaurant back in the 90s. Super, he kind of introduced fine dining in a lot of ways to the U.S. Anyways, what Charlie would do is he would bring in impoverished kids from the ghetto, like homeless kids, into his restaurant and give them like a 5-star, like seriously, like full fine dining experience. And the reason he did that is because he wanted to expose them to something fundamentally different from what they've been exposed to. And a lot of people criticized Charlie for this. Like they said, you're setting these kids up for failure. But he wanted to expose them to new things so that they could actually have new goals. And so this makes it really crucial that you expose yourself to new things, new and better things, read new information, have new experiences so that you can, this is one of the reasons why I love reading biographies, honestly. But it's also why I invest in like mastermind groups and stuff, because I love putting myself in new situations where like, I'm like, wow, I can't believe how limited my current perspective was. So the first one is exposure. Your current goals are based on what you've been exposed to. If you begin exposing yourself to new and better things, you can then set new and better goals. The second one is what you desire. Your goals are based on what you want. And you have to own that what you're currently pursuing may be something that you shouldn't want anymore. Like Andre came to that conclusion that maybe he shouldn't want to be the number one guy in prison. Like maybe that's a shallow desire. Maybe that's your personality in a lot of ways is based on what you prefer. It's based on what your preference is and also what you're willing to tolerate. And your former self probably had preferences that your current self doesn't have. Like your former self enjoyed doing things that you no longer like doing or that you're no longer willing to do anymore. And so you have to just own that your current preferences can and should change and that you can adjust those. And then you can think to yourself, what should I want? Because you can train your desires. The third one is confidence. Confidence is basically the belief that you can accomplish something. So you're not going to actually set something out if you don't think you can do it.
Right.
And confidence is the basis of imagination. So as you build confidence, your willingness or your belief in setting bigger or different goals is going to adjust. Confidence and flexibility are very connected. You'll be more flexible and see different possibilities if you're confident. And you have to build confidence daily. Like confidence grows as you actually make progress towards goals. So as you move forward, your confidence expands.
Micro accomplishment,
yeah.
Right? So it's in every little thing that you do that you say you're going to do builds confidence.
Yeah. So, I mean, if your future self has more confidence than your current self because they've followed through, because they've learned, because they've overcome challenges, because they've done baby steps on a daily basis and moved forward. You build confidence by moving in the direction you genuinely want to go, by living intentionally. Then your future self's imagination will be much bigger and they'll have bigger goals than your current self.
Distractions are the enemy of productivity. Go to distractionquiz.com and find out your distraction profile. Are you a time zombie or a hamster? Take this free distraction quiz today to rate your ability to focus on what keeps you from being a wizard. Go to distractionquiz.com.
Yeah, a big thing for me also in that confidence piece and just recognizing where you've made progress. It's not always about...
That's huge.
Right? It's about, but people they move on to the next thing, right? They're, especially as entrepreneurs, right? We're always like on to the next thing. So I like intentionally when I meet with one of my friends, we coach each other once a week and we go through our pros and grows, like our wins and things that are currently what we're working.
So smart.
We're learning.
You're so great.
It was huge for me when we started to do this because I was always feeling like, at the end of the day, like feeling unproductive or unaccomplished, not recognizing the things that I actually did do and maybe it wasn't everything that was on my list or what I thought I should be doing. But when I looked, I was like, wow, this is
substantial. Yeah,
substantial and mention worthy, but I was dismissing it. So it's so important that we recognize the progress that we've made and take time to look back and say, wow, look at where I've come and how I've changed and how I see things differently.
I think what you're describing is one of the absolute keys to mental well-being. It's so important that I'm so glad you brought it up. I actually recently had a conversation with my mother-in-law. I showed her in the front of all my journals. I asked myself, what are the wins from the last 90 days? Uh-huh. And so I asked her because I'm like, Janae, like just take a second to think about all the positive things that have happened in the last 90 days. And like some of them have been challenging, but things you've worked through. Like what are all the things that you've done in the last 90 days? And she pulled out her journal and like I gave her like 20 minutes and she made a list and she realized it's so easy to forget, but if you're moving forward and you give yourself the space, even on a daily basis like you did, to think like what were the wins today? You can train yourself. Like so Dan Sullivan, he talks about measuring the gain, not the gap. Measure the gain. And if you actually do that, it does build huge confidence because you realize over the last month or over the last 2 or 3 months, like I've actually made some pretty amazing progress and you can acknowledge that. And by acknowledging it, it boosts you because you see change, you see progress, and it then excites you to keep going.
Right. Absolutely. So I just wanted people,
it's so key
that they're seeing that that's all part of building confidence, right? And getting that clarity. So I love it that you broke down those goals into those 3 areas. Before we close out today's session, is there anything else that you wanted to share that you have in the book, Personality Isn't Permanent, around goals that you feel would be, or not in the book, that would really help people to understand this idea around how important goals are?
Yeah, there's one element in the book that I think is crucial. That's a different approach to goals than I think is often talked about, but it served me very well and it makes sense motivationally. So when it comes to thinking about where you want your life to go, rather than starting with a goal, you actually obviously want to start with your identity. Who is your future self? You really frame that out. Define the future self. Define who you want to be, because identity is what drives everything. And identity, by the way, is far more powerful than personality. Your identity is self-chosen, and it's what drives ultimately who your personality becomes. But after you've defined your future self, then it's really powerful to think about what is one key outcome. What is one, I call it a keystone goal. But like, what is the one tangible thing that would make your future self possible? There's obviously the book called The One Thing, but like having one major goal, yeah, you may have other like minor goals, but like having one major goal that you believe will allow your future self to become possible. The reason it's so important is because from a psychological perspective, motivation really does require like a clear goal, a clear path, and then the confidence that you can get there. And so when you have one major goal, it allows you to then reverse engineer a process, but also then it clarifies your identity. And it becomes a story then that you can use as your future narrative. So like as an example, and I've already kind of said this, but like when I was a graduate student, I really wanted to become a professional writer. That was my future self. The one goal after getting a lot of education on how to actually do that was that I wanted to get a 6-figure book deal. Like I wanted to have a book deal from one of the big 5 publishers in New York. And so my future self was an identity and a situation. My goal though, to get there, the one goal, and so it's really key to think of what's the one goal that would allow that to be possible was if I got a 6-figure book deal, then I would have the freedom, I'd be able to like support my family, I'd be able to do what I want, I'd also have the flexibility to like, and so I was just thinking about my future self, but then this one goal would allow that to happen. And with that one tangible goal, your brain really, from a goal perspective, tangible things like measurable, like whether it's like a number or it's an event, those things your brain can focus on. And your brain, like from our brain, we selectively attend to things that matter to us. And so by having something tangible, like an event or a number, you can then train your brain to find it, but also you can then reverse engineer a process to get it. And so your goal shapes your process. And I think that the reason why I was able to accelerate so fast as a writer is because I had a very clear goal and an identity behind the goal. And the identity and obviously the situation was the why. The goal was the what.
Right. And you're a good writer, because let's face it, if you can't write and you want to be a good writer, then you're going to have to...
Yeah, but I couldn't write before I did that. Like I wanted to be a writer. It was through the process, just to say this again, like this book was not easy for me to write. It took 1.5 years. It took 1 year longer than was expected. And there were many times when I wanted to quit because I didn't think I could do it. And so you shouldn't pursue what you just think is going to be easy or natural. Like you should pursue what you genuinely want to do. And so I think I've become a good writer to some degrees, but it was never easy or natural. And it was all focused on the future I wanted to create. And then through the process of change, I became it, but it was never easy and it's still not easy.
Well, there you have it, everybody. Don't expect it to be easy.
The idea is that you should pursue just what's natural to you. And I don't think anyone who's ever become brilliant at anything said it was easy.
Well, and if it's easy, there's no growth, right? And then actually there's no fulfillment and there's probably very little impact if it's easy.
And this isn't to say you should just go do something that's painful and difficult for the sake of pain and difficulty. It's just owning the fact that the idea of deliberate practice, which is actual genuine learning, is that it's going to be challenging, it's going to be difficult, it's going to be hard, it's going to push you to become an expert. And so you can become brilliant at essentially whatever you want, but getting there is not just going to be some easy natural path.
Awesome. Do you have a last, I know you're the master of quotes. You use a lot of quotes. Do you have a quote to close us out for today?
Yeah. The big thing that I really love in this book is labels. So labels create tunnel vision is one fact. Like when you assume a label, it creates tunnel vision. So I love the idea that labels create tunnel vision. And I also love the idea that your labels should support your goals. You should intentionally call yourself or tell yourself whatever you want, but your goals, the things that you pursue, should never support the labels that you've adopted. So like if you think you're an introvert or something, then you would set introverted goals. I think it's better to have your labels or how you define yourself be supportive of the goals you genuinely want, rather than letting your goals be a byproduct of how you currently define yourself.
Absolutely. So. Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing a little bit about your book, Personality Isn't Permanent. Go out and get a copy, guys.
Yeah, I would challenge you to. I think it's going to shock you. I mean, one of the things we didn't talk about is that this book totally debunks like the whole personality test industry. And I believe that this book will show you why you are the way you are and help you then to define who you want to be and become that person. And it will prove to you with science and with like really provocative stories and common sense that you're not just the way you are.
Absolutely. I love that you gave a description that said that these types of tests are not only psychologically destructive, but they're no more scientific than horoscopes. So,
and that's actually just true.
right. So,
I learned that over my PhD program, and it shocked me. Because I assumed even in my undergrad in psych that these tests are interesting, but once I actually got deep into test development and it's called psychometrics and things like that, all my professors were like, anything that categorizes people into broad types, ignores context, is non-consistent, non-valid. These things are not true tests, and that's what all those popular tests are. And so,
yeah, I mean, I
don't want to take them seriously.
A snapshot in time, right? A snapshot
from one perspective.
From one perspective, exactly. And I do believe that it can help you with certain things. I think it can help you to understand better communicating with other people. It can
help you. It can open up perspectives you may not have had.
Exactly. But to hang on to them in any way. Anyway, read the book, guys, and you'll find out more about why this is not the end all be all.
You're awesome. It's so fun to chat with you.
Thank you. It's been great having you here. And thank you all for being here. Without you, there wouldn't be a show. So thank you. Go get the book. Really check it out. It's going to give you some deep thoughts. It's going to really challenge you in a number of different areas of your life that are going to make you a better person. So my name is Penny Zenker, and this is Take Back Time. We'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you for listening. Today's topic is another opportunity for you to put the knowledge you learned into practice. Tune in again next week for more strategies that will help you have more energy and focus to get more done in less time, so you can continue to take back time.